Hello, good morning. This is Alejandro Corpeño from Hello Iconic, and we thank you all for being in this webinar. As some of you know, we have been doing this series of webinars this year about the things that we are doing at the company, and basically the thing that we love doing, which is creating software, creating products for millions of users. And today we're going to be focusing on successfully executing streaming products. Specifically, we're talking about audio streaming. And for that, we have two special guests today. We have Dan Mackta from Qobuz joining us, and Hannah Johnson from the Neil Young Archives. So before we jump to introducing them, we want to also acknowledge that today is the Veterans Day. We honor everyone who served in the military. Today, there's a lot of activities going on in the US country about it, so we celebrate that day for thanking them and honoring. So before we start also, I want to give a little bit of a context of what we're doing today. We as Hello Iconic are working always with product leaders and entrepreneurs, building software and building products. And today we are having some audience joining the webinar across that spectrum. So we have people from different companies, small startups, large corporations like Morgan Stanley, startups like Blaze and others. And we have people in roles like product management, CTOs, founders, and directors of technology. And one of the objectives of the talk is just to get into the head of people like Dan and Hannah, who are day-to-day working on building these products that you enjoy from the business perspective, design, and also their own areas of expertise. So without further ado, I want to introduce first one of our guests, Dan Mackta. He is Managing Director of Qobuz in the United States. He has more than 20 years of experience in the music industry. And he has been working with great artists like Weird Al Yankovic, Tool, and many more. Dan, maybe you can introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about who you are, and then we can jump maybe a little bit details about what Qobuz is and what you're doing.
Right. Is it a bad joke for me to say it's amazing that I have 20 plus years of experience in the music business? I must have started when I was 5 years old, since I'm only 25. Yeah, 20 plus, maybe a lot more than that, Alejandro. I was really always working on the label artist side of the industry. Some of the artists you mentioned, those are some of the great releases. Our artists whose releases basically I was a marketing guy, a product manager at the labels for all those artists, and worked with them and their teams, and jumped over to this very exciting and different side of the business. At this point, I think it's about four years ago, when Qobuz, which is a French company that started more than 10 years ago in France and had operations running in Europe, decided they wanted to launch in the US. So I joined then, and the first order of business was, there it is, get the product localized and ready for market, and then come up with a plan to bring it to market, and everything that goes along with that to get the service available in the US. So we launched here in February of 2019. So it's still a really, pretty much a baby, and a new kid on the block still. And it's been a dream job for me, insofar as I always secretly wanted to be, a guy running a really cool record store. And because I'm a music fan, I just love, as you can see.
Yeah, we can tell that you were
Records and music in all its forms. So the the role that I have, while it's I'm overseeing really all elements, and truth be told, we've got a fantastic head of product who is based in France, Axel Destagnol, and we've got a team that is really truly responsible for the product. I'm a member of the broader team that makes sure that what we're doing is what the market is calling for. Work closely with those guys, of course, but it's a small company with about 120 people globally, in the US, and that's small compared to the other music streaming services. Every single one of them that you've heard of has a lot more people than that. Some have exponentially more people than that. I mean, some of the biggest companies in the world are doing a version of what we do, but it's a real kind of niche, high-end experience. I don't know if you're ready for me to dive into Qobuz to talk about it at all yet, or if this is more just a personal introduction.
Yeah, I think we'll jump deeper into the product right now, but it's great that now people know what you're up to in Qobuz. And yeah, let's probably get Hannah Johnson from the Neil Young Archives. You're a project manager and producer. You also have a lot of experience in the music industry, right? And you owned your own firm back in the day. But yeah, tell us a little bit more about you.
Sure. Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for asking me to be part of this today. I've been working in the music industry specifically for about 12 years. My experience prior to that was working with visual artists. I think kind of the through line for all of my experience has always been working with artists to try to execute an incredibly particular vision that they have for a project, whether it is was publishing a book for a visual artist before I started my own company, which created live video content for concerts, and then moving on to working with Neil, who I've been working with off and on for about 10 years, for a large chunk of that as his archivist, helping him select items from the archive for album art covers and Archives Volume 1, which included a book and was a Blu-ray multimedia release, and then Archives Volume 2, which came out last year, which was also a book, and a 10-disc series of music from the archive. And so neilyoungarchives.com and the iOS and Android app is an extension of that project. And so when we decided to do that, naturally I was on board and have been managing the development of that platform and the content on the platform for about 5 years now.
Awesome. Thank you both for joining. It's a pleasure to have you. And I really admire all of the work you're doing, because it's not always that we get to work with celebrities like Neil Young, or even the music industry, that it's something that we love aside from work. Introducing a little bit about myself for those who don't know me. I am Alejandro Corpeño. I am one of the founders and CEO of Hello Iconic, and we have 20 plus years of experience building software. And nowadays it's called digital products, right? Because it started more like websites, then websites became mobile applications, then that became TV apps, audio apps, and now basically every product people use on their day-to-day is software. So we have been working with companies like Disney, ABC, Sci-Fi in the marketing side, also on the video streaming side, and others. So in general, what we define ourselves right now is that we are a company that makes products enjoyed by millions of people daily. And that is, sounds like a lot, but in some cases, it has been like millions of users in a day when we release apps for a big movie or for your products like Neil Young or Qobuz, right? A lot of people are using those products every day. So the way we do it at the company is like we mix really core software engineering with product design. We sit down with our clients and understand their business, what's important for their products, and always put data and research behind it. And through that, we learn. Sometimes we work on a proof of concept, we release it, but we track what happens there and learn, iterate to come up with a product that really has a way of growing or engaging with the users. We have worked, as I mentioned, with a variety of clients, like smaller startups like The Recount, Cyvatar, large companies like Disney, ABC, and you see some fintech companies also, streaming, and some on the entertainment industry. And today, well, we are getting deeper into content for the entertainment and music with you. So again, I thank you for being here. Before we jump into the content, just want to mention to everyone that we have the Q&A section on Zoom. You can find it at the bottom there on the tools, and you can send your questions. We're going to be keeping an eye on them and answer them at the end. So any questions that you might have as we discuss and have the conversation, just make sure to send them there and we will run through them in the stream. And also we're streaming this live on LinkedIn, and it's going to be recorded there for you to watch afterwards if you want to share it. So without further ado, I just wanted to jump right into the topic, and some things that I wanted to talk about is in your products, the ones you showed, both Qobuz and Neil Young archives. As a consumer, we just go and play the music, right? But we usually don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And one thing that I noticed, for example, in the Neil Young archives that you showed, Hannah, is that it's not just the music, right? You have the visual aspect of it, you have some videos, you have a community aspect. So there's a lot. So I just wanted to get deeper into both products, just to understand the whole packaging of the experience. So maybe we can start with you, Hannah, just to, if you want to talk a little bit more about that. What is exactly your product? It's not just the content is one thing on the music side and in maybe the art or videos, but what else? How do you define the Neil Young archives from an experience or product perspective?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think my answer to this question generally changes based on who the audience is, because Neil Young Archives is so much. It really is the hub for everything Neil's done, not just currently in his career, but throughout his entire history of his career. And to some people, I'd say that it's a streaming service, specifically a high resolution, the first of its kind of single artist only streaming service. You can stream all of Neil's music, his entire catalog in high res. It's adaptive bitrate streaming. So you're going to get the best quality you can get based on your bandwidth and your setup. But in addition to that, I think Neil has if you know anything about him, a real dedication to quality and high res audio, and always kind of striving to give people the best experience that he can give in listening to his music. And for him and for me as well, personally, that means kind of giving as much of an analog experience as you can. Like, this digital space has really taken away a lot from the experience that people used to have listening to music. And so with NYA, everywhere you look, I think we're striving to do that, to give like as tactile an experience as possible within this digital space. So we have a filing cabinet that we hope people feel like they're, searching through to find songs. Every album you listen to, you have a full album art gallery where you can like read the liner notes and zoom in and really like see all the details. And in addition to that, we give his music some context. So we have original manuscripts and photographs from the recording and any information from the archives we have about that specific thing that you're experiencing, we try to give you, so you really have this kind of 360 view of his music. In addition to that, we've got books, and he has a newspaper where we print and have people write articles, and he writes articles every day. So there's a lot of one-on-one interaction with fans. Neil answers letters directly to fans publicly every week. We have 2 different spaces where you can view his catalog of videos. So it's, part audio streaming service. We have a VOD service. We have we're a news outlet in some ways. A lot of different things happening at NYA.
Yeah, and it's not just the website, right? You have apps also.
Yes, we have the iOS and Android apps, which currently we're still working on developing parity between our desktop site and our apps. The apps don't have everything we have on web, so we kind of view them as kind of companions to the desktop experience, because you're not able to get that full experience in app. We don't have all of the manuscripts and the photos and all of the kind of additional bonus content there, but people want to stream high res on the go. Well, we're happy to try to facilitate that. Awesome.
And yeah, from your side, Dan, we know Qobuz is from Europe, right? From France, and you're introducing it to the US just 3 years ago. So how would you describe the service, and what is it, and what makes it different or similar to other things we know?
Well, in some ways, it's probably most similar to Neil Young Archives in terms of where we're coming from, which is just, quality above all else, and respect for, for the people that are making the music, and also respect for the fans, and respect for the whole ecosystem that, that is, music fandom. So it's in some ways, I'd say hats off to Neil Young Archives. I was, the first with my credit card as soon as they were ready to take my annual subscription. It was a small price to pay for that kind of access and direct, line into one of my favorite artists. And, it's, it's a singular artist vision. Qobuz is in some ways more similar, on the surface to other streaming services, insofar as we have a full catalog, the same, what's the latest number, 70 million, 80 million tracks that all the other services, the names of which you've heard, I don't need to say them, but we've got it all in the best possible quality, which is also, great, but not a true differentiator anymore, although we were the first full catalog service to offer high-res streaming before we launched in the US. And people said, nobody wants that. People don't care about sound quality. So, well, enough do, some do. And, it turns out we weren't crazy, as, I guess, you could mention it, Amazon and Apple have both introduced high-res streaming in the interim since we launched. So I'd like to think we had some small part in to play in popularizing the idea of sound quality and streaming, and pushing the bigger players to kind of do what they always could have done but just hadn't done, which was stream lossless or high-res audio to those who want it. So our whole ethos of the quality and respect for the music extends to all the liner notes. We publish every credit that we get from the record companies with the music, which is sometimes very complete, sometimes not, but we publish what we can get. We publish digital booklets right in the desktop and mobile apps, which is, pretty unique. Again, we don't get them from every label, but, if you're an opera fan, you want your libretto, that's very meaningful. And then we've got original, a team of writers, and we work with a lot of really great, freelance music journalists to do original album reviews and long form, written articles that are, it's all right in the app. So, it's a bit of a throwback to an older experience where music is not just something that's happening in the background, but you put music on and you're clicking around and digging in and looking, maybe reading an article about an artist, and at the same time, you're getting the best possible quality. And really our core audience, the original early adopters of Qobuz, are these crazy, I don't want to say crazy, wonderful audiophiles. I mean, of which I've become one, because as soon as you start to hear audio and the kind of quality you can get by starting with a pure source like Qobuz, and then you spent a little bit more on your components and your speakers or your headphones, wow, you can't go back to listening on $5 Bluetooth earbuds. It's just, you can't go back. But so anyway, so we're, it's a high-end service. We don't have a free tier. There's no ad supported. It's not something where you're just saying, hey, Qobuz, play background music. It's really aimed at a more engaged listener, which, as audio quality becomes more mainstream, there's more and more people of every age group who want to start from a baseline of knowing they're getting the best audio quality, and then depending on how they listen and where, there's different services that appeal to different people. So so we're in it, but like at the high end. But if we could get 1% of the global streaming market, Alejandro, we would be doing this webinar from a private jumbo jet circumnavigating the globe. I mean, with champagne flowing at all times. It's such a huge market, even in our niche. And we've shown that the niche is not, just our hope. It's a real business, because some of the biggest companies in the world are now, kind of doing it too.
They're catching up.
They wouldn't do it if they didn't think it was a way to make money. They're not doing it for their health. So so I think that's where we are. And we opened in the US 3 years ago. Since then, we opened in the Nordics, and we opened in Australia and New Zealand. We have some Central South America and more countries planned for later this year. And we just purchased a company in Japan called eOnkyo, which was a high-res download service. So now that's a tougher market to get into from a base in France. So they have no streaming. Streaming is really in its infancy in Japan. So we're getting ready to, work with this existing company over there and launch high-res streaming in Japan. So there's still a huge amount of a world for us to get into.
That's great, because I know from working with you that your team is pretty small, right? So you're taking a lot of things. Both your teams is pretty nimble, but tackling this big mission and making the big companies in the industry follow your lead is amazing. And I capture from both that quality then of your service is not just the audio quality, but the quality of the whole experience. It's not just having the catalog, but having these digital booklets or the design, making it feel analog. So all of that, I think it's really amazing. And for people listening here, and I gotta also mention that in my case, I knew about the concept from the technical standpoint of high-res audio, and we are pretty familiar with high-res images, the resolution, but I don't know if you wanna explain a little bit more for people that are new to this, like high-res audio. For example, just an experience I had is I was driving the other day, and my wife was playing music from her phone on the car, so it was already streaming through Bluetooth. And then I was listening to the song, and I was already working with you. So I started paying attention, and I was like, where is the, the drums? I don't feel the metal there. I don't feel this. And all those details are not there. Then I went back home and I listened to the same song in high res. And I was like, amazed, because I like, when I was a teenager, I played the drums in a band for 10 years. So I really recognize those sounds, and high res has that. But the other things we're used to are just deleting that detail. So that was my personal experience, but maybe you can explain from your side also, like why is that so important? And from the artists, I guess they are really focused on getting that detail through. So maybe let's start with Hannah, since you work directly with the artist, right? Oh, what's that all about?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'll let Dan speak to the technical side of high res, but really, I mean, high res audio, that experience, exactly what you just described, has been what our initial call to action was here when in creating Neil Young Archives. Back when volume 1 and the physical releases existed, we were releasing them on Blu-ray because it was the only way to put 24/192 audio on a disc that people could then play at home on their systems that had a visual component. So yeah, that experience of actually feeling that music is something that I won't name names, but there's a lot of places out there not delivering that anymore. And there are a lot of compromises that people don't even really know that they're making and consuming that. Certainly kind of, educating people on this is one of Neil's greatest missions. And in one way, I think just his dedication to making sure that he's giving people the good experience, the alternative, full experience of his music at every chance he can, so that people can have the experience that you just described themselves, is one of the most critical parts of certainly Neil Young Archives, and I mean Neil Young's mission in general.
Yeah.
I mean, Neil really set the bar very high. He recognized, listen, I mean, a lot of us who grew up listening to records and then, maybe CDs, and grew up maybe, when you first had your money from your first job, you went out and bought like a little stereo system, speakers and a turntable and a receiver. That's gone. The younger generation, I don't sound like a grandfather, but my kids who are teenagers never had any desire to do that. They just listened to music, basically however they could. And even the aspiration of some better quality didn't exist. And, without getting too technical about it, when the iPod came out and the idea of commercial digital music, and it was all around the MP3, which is a lossy format, which means that something is taken out of the music. Now, technically, it's a perceptual coding, so it does something to fool your brain into not realizing something has been taken out. The way it works is, they figure there's certain frequencies that don't really matter, and they're, so they can make the file much smaller, and your brain doesn't really know. Well, that's true. Your brain doesn't really know if you're not comparing it to the original recording, in which case it becomes immediately apparent that, there's something taken out. So high res, is basically the same kind of digital quality that most modern recording studios use when they're recording it in the studio. It's 24-bit, which is a digital word length. If that means anything to anybody, it doesn't really mean anything to me, other than 24 must be better than 16 because it's a bigger number. But there's basically exponentially more data in that file, in that high res file. And it's the millions of tiny details, the nth level decay of a symbol that someone who really is listening to the music would notice is there or not there. And so the high res audio quality is something that was really only available to people who had very expensive systems and a lot of money to spend on high-res downloads. And since the advent of high-res streaming, it's now, much to I think the pleasure of artists like Neil and those who care about sound quality, that's like, wow, people can actually now get the same quality that we made it in the studio without it being stepped on 3 or 4 times along the way. It's become available to just about everyone who is willing to make a little small investment of time and resources to be able to access it. It's right there.
Yeah, especially with broadband and all of the new technologies, it's like not impossible.
That's it. I mean, at least in the United States, almost everywhere, even on cellular, I can stream high res, maybe not the very biggest 24 192 files, which is as big as they get.
Yeah,
could be almost 10,000 kilobits per second to stream a file that big. But listen, 10 megs broadband, that's, most people have that in their house. Everybody has that, 10 megs.
Yeah, and that is part of the streaming like product itself. Like it's as you mentioned, Hannah, adaptive, right? So if you have a bandwidth that is lower, it adapts and gets the quality that it can get at that bandwidth. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the player on NYA is, I have to mention Frankie Tan and Kelvin Lee of AuraStream, who are our partners in streaming, aurastream.com, and they're an incredible company and incredible people. And they came on really, they, initially was who allowed us to create this, because they allowed us to stream high res. But yeah, so it's adaptive bitrate based on your bandwidth. And if you listen on NYA, our player actually has a kind of a gauge that's telling you how much of the total quality you're getting. We also have a switch called the Master 320 switch that you can flip, so you can hear the high-res file and then switch to 320 and be hearing basically MP3 quality. And so you can do that comparison right there.
That's one of my favorite features.
Exactly how much of the quality you're getting.
That's one of my favorite features. I love that dial.
Oh,
yeah,
because you can compare and realize what you're missing, right?
Yeah,
that's great. And just also for the audience, like having a streaming product or service is not something that anyone just can wake up one day and say, I'm gonna open one of these. So, but if someone has that, what are the components you have to think about that you have been going through when you started? Is there there's app stores that you have to go through, or hosting platforms like AuraStream for the streaming? You can have hardware partnerships, or how do you get to different like how people consume those? If you can talk about that journey, how is that? Like if anyone wants to build something like this or release, what are the complexities around it?
They are, extraordinarily complex, which is why not every, people would be doing it left and right. I mean, obviously, in our case, there's all of the licensing with the record companies, from the biggest in the world to, some all the way down to certain artists where you have to license directly. To have the catalog is something that was a massive undertaking that thankfully was already well underway by the time I came on, and since we were already operating in Europe. But in our case, our apps, our native apps, support things like AirPlay and Chromecast and different protocols that are always changing. So they're always, Apple decides to do something somewhere, or in their app, there's the app stores that you have to deal with and the distribution. There is hardware partnerships for us. We're like I said, really deeply committed to this high-end audiophile community, and so the hardware that they use goes far beyond just a phone. So there's companies that have streaming capabilities embedded into speakers, amps, standalone hardware. You know, there's Sonos, there's Blue Sound, there's Yamaha, there's many different companies and protocols that we integrate with, which has been, you know, basically collaborative processes that, you know, took a long time to get into place. And so there's still some that haven't integrated Qobuz yet. And you know, believe it or not, I won't name names. Denon Marantz, Sound United, yes, but they're working on it. They're working on it, and it's a you know, it's not an easy lift on either side when a new platform is going to get introduced. And then we recently launched really our first global TV app on the Samsung platform, which was a whole nother set of challenges and things that we didn't know anything about, where we had to you know, find people who did know, which was Alejandro's team, who could you know, work directly with our squad to make it happen. And you know, there's more platforms on the way. There's always, you know, things we haven't developed for because we're a small company, and the roadmap is already full. And you know, the roadmap of future roadmaps is pretty full. So it's really but that's where the growth for us would come from, which is you know, new platforms, new countries.
Yeah, and the Samsung one that you mentioned, yeah, it's like that's one platform, and then you have to go to others, right? So it's always looking for building an app that runs on different operating systems, hardware, or options that you have for distribution. Yeah. And in that question, I think one thing I wanted to ask, probably, well, both of you, but how's the like the artist in all this ecosystem? You mentioned you license sometimes from the label, directly with the artist, but in this case, for example, Neil Young decided to build his own thing, right? So how is that the artist creates the content and his craft, right? But then jumping directly into building the whole platform. I don't know if you have any experiences there, Hannah, that you can share, or like challenges. How do you tackle those challenges that is like building a technology product?
Yeah, I mean, this was really new to us. Fortunately, we just had, you know, with all startups or any project like this, I would absolutely say that having that team in the beginning kind of set up, I mean, and certainly Iconic now, who, you know, really was a huge change for us once we started working with you guys, but having a solid team early on to advise us and help us as we go, and just a really clear directive. You know, our fearless leader who like knows exactly what he wants and what he's looking for, and that having that guide really simplified things for us. But yeah, there are tons of challenges. We're just one artist, and I can relate to some of what Dan was talking about with licensing. We've had headaches ourselves, so can't imagine what you guys have gone through.
Right. I mean, yeah, and you are the artist, and licensing is difficult.
Yeah. It's complex, and we're a really small team. Also, there's no one on the Neil Young team who works exclusively on neilyoungarchives.com or the platform. We're all working on other projects as well. So yeah, I think one of the biggest struggles is to continue to build features and add to the product and create parity along all of our different platforms, while also continuously improving what we've already done. That would, I think, be one of the biggest challenges we've faced and are still continuing to work on.
And that's on the topic of growth, right? So you build the platform, and now you want to get to more users or markets, and in that. For example, right now you have your business model is subscription or selling the downloads, or both, or how do you work right now? Let's start probably with Qobuz. Is the business model that you have right now?
It's actually both. Like you mentioned, we do sell downloads. We have a high-res download store. So we're one of the few services, along with Neil Young Archives, that actually offers, high-res streaming and a la carte downloads for sale. So, for anyone who's more than, again, 15 years old, there was a time when people like to buy their files, but buy music as files. And those people still exist, and especially in the high end. So we sell actually quite a few, a la carte, albums and tracks, which is a great way for people to really know that they're supporting an artist, because the economics of buying an album, even digitally, are so different, versus streaming, which is, a wonderful thing in a lot of ways. But the other revenue stream that like you mentioned is a subscription model.
Mhm.
We don't have a free tier. A lot of streaming is ad supported, so kind of feels free to the user. But for us, music shouldn't really feel free. We don't think that's not a good look. Music has got value, so we're looking for ways to create more revenue for the creative value chain, not find ways to give it away.
Mhm. Yeah. And in the NYA side, Hannah, your subscription mostly, or you have both?
We also offer both. We have a download store, and then we have several different subscription tiers that give you access to various different things on the website. So there's Classic, which is just all of our streaming, and then we have Rest and Patron, and those tiers get access to video on demand, so you can watch any of Neil's films or videos whenever you like. And also a great, incredible thing that people are loving that we launched a few weeks ago, which is our performance log. So fans actually now are writing in and asking for us to release their favorite show that they've been at, and we're going through the archives and offering that to people. So we've added, I think it must have been 15 by now, of these full high-res full concert streams. And then we have the download store as well. And if we have Neil Young's merchandise store, so any album that people buy, we give away a download of that album as well, in addition to the physical product.
Yeah, that's great, because I always think about the physical aspect, that with just a service that just streams audio is lost. And both of you mentioned not just the like a digital booklet, but also on NYA you have actual physical goods that people can buy. So I think that's part of the whole product. I think I wanted to check the questions right now, and I see we have a couple. So I just want to throw them out there to see what your thoughts are. We got one related right now to the business model we're talking, and probably this is around the licensing, but they're asking, the question is by J. Brian Hennessy. He's asking, how do we ensure that artists are compensated fully and fairly for their work? And how do you define fairly today versus yesterday in this new streaming world? So I don't know, maybe you, Dan, can tackle that, since you deal with all the licenses and everything.
Yeah. I mean, fairly, to me means, in this day and age, transparently, which is something that was really never available in the music business in the past, for better or worse. It's never been an easy way to make a living, and most who do music don't make a living from it. And that doesn't mean that, a lot of them do it anyway. And, as they should. Music is an art form, and art and commerce, sometimes can be some friction. But in terms of Qobuz, and really there's a lot of misconceptions around how streaming payments happen. we have contracts with, all the major labels and all the record companies. Artists generally have contracts with their record company. They don't have a contract with us. And we also have agreements with all of the music publishers. Because remember, there's not only records, there's also the compositions. It's a whole separate set of rights. And we also have all of those contracts. And in streaming, there's the third right implicated, which is public performance. So in the US, there's ASCAP and BMI. And so we also have to pay those rights. And at the end of the day, roughly 70 cents of every dollar that comes in from a streaming subscription goes right back out the door to pay those rights. Record company, music publisher, public performance. The artist gets their money from those entities, and there's a lot of friction that everybody knows about in terms of the music getting back to the creators based on a lot of historical factors. So I feel very confident that our business model is fair to the creators, because again, like I said, we're not giving it away. We're not trying to build an audience purely on the back of someone else's work. We're trying to expose and celebrate the work and find listeners for things that are not mainstream. That's kind of our vision of it is, we're not so much about the current, top 40 hits as we are about all the great music that's being made today and in the past. So, a bit more of an editorial platform that also happens to be a revenue generator.
Yeah.
Instead of the other way around, maybe. And we also, like I said, have this download store that we really push. And the economics of download are much more clearly understood. You buy, download, and again, 70 cents of the dollar goes back to the rights holders. But the dollars add up a lot more quickly with download purchases than they do with streaming.
Nice. And how is it different on your case, Hannah, with Neil owning the platform itself? But you mentioned there's also licenses around, right? Because he has contracts with.
So there's different labels involved. Warner Reprise, who's Neil's label, is absolutely our partner in Neil Young Archives, and we couldn't do this without their assistance as well. But he also has some albums that are on Geffen, and so we've had to deal with licensing in terms of that. But yeah, I mean, we definitely do not face the same challenges. This isn't as much of a question for us as it is for another streaming service, because Neil owns it and runs it. And I think I think a lot of more, I wish that more artists would do what he's doing and taking control over their streaming that way. In addition to all these other places, it gives them a direct line to their fans and to the distribution and how their music is being represented. And then also they have it's all theirs. Well, it's not all theirs, but they run it. I should
really control the presentation. I mean, the Neil Young Archives is such a good value for someone who's really into Neil's music. I almost feel like he's doing more of a public service than a business because it's such a oh geez, I'm sorry. I thought I put it on Do Not Disturb. I mean, it's just such a good value.
Yeah. And we have another question here that I think is a little bit related and a little bit techy, because there's this person, his name is Joaquin Alcero, and he's asking, how do you see blockchain music projects changing or impacting music industry? I think it goes to the point that you mentioned, then also of transparency. Like there's a lot about having blockchain now be able to show you the whole chain of what happens to a dollar, how it gets distributed, or even the current hype of NFTs. Like you can sell an actual digital good and own it, But I don't know if you have heard or have any plans around that technology in the music industry.
I mean, listen, it's something that we hear about every day, and I definitely follow it. You know, overall, the you know, the uptake of you know, blockchain kind of you know, accounting and smart contracts and all these things in the music business won't happen until the majors adopt it. It's just too much of the business is controlled by, you know, a handful of very big companies. And so, you know, I got, you still hear about people trying to you know, disrupt with these technologies, and it's you know, it could happen, but at this point, what we do is just not really impacted. You know, there are ancillary things in terms of, you know, different kinds of tracking and, you know, fraud prevention and things we've heard about that use blockchain, and you know, there could be something to NFTs in the future if we try to expand our you know, revenue streams, digital revenue streams, and who knows. But today it hasn't really changed much of how we do things, other than, you know, offered some food for thought.
Yeah. Is there anything, Hannah? I know Neil Young is always like innovator. He's always on top of new things, but have you heard anything about that area on his mind, like wanting to jump into that arena?
I haven't. That's actually the second time I've gotten that question in the last couple of weeks, and I still don't have an answer now. It hasn't come up.
Yeah, awesome. So I think we're getting close to the hour, and I want to be mindful of your time and everybody else. So I don't know if there's any closing thoughts you want to leave the audience, things we haven't discussed that you think are important to mention before we wrap up. Maybe Hannah, if you have any thoughts or closing words.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just wanting to give credit to, you know, my whole team, because we're a small team that works really hard, and everyone at Iconic and Aurastream and Warner and Lookout Management. None of this could happen without all of these different people playing a pretty big role in NYA. So if you're trying to, you know, launch your own streaming service, that's where to start. Look up all those people I just said in those companies.
Yeah, it's a big team effort that you need, and put a lot of people working together, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Dan, do you have any words from your side?
Yeah, well, similarly, I would say, you know, it's a team effort, and the guys on the team in France, you know, continually do amazing work, considering how small the team is and limited our resources are compared to the giants in our area, in our business. So I would say the key thing, if you are coming at this kind of business fresh, is know your audience. Make sure you've got an audience, preferably be your audience, so that you really can know that audience. Otherwise, it's tough to imagine how you're going to launch a successful streaming product without a really clearly defined audience that's not being served by the giants that are already out there, because you know, these companies spend more in a minute on marketing than we spend on everything in an entire year. So the only way to compete with that, I think, is to really understand a clearly defined audience and build your product for them.
Yeah, awesome. Well, yeah, I want to thank you both. And you see right now on the screen, Dan's and Hannah contact on LinkedIn. If you can find them there, follow their companies and their projects. And I want to also, I will thank you both for accepting our invitation. We have been working with you throughout the whole year, building your amazing products. And I want to also commend your teams. It's, as you mentioned, really small team. Everybody's doing something really, really important. And we are really lucky to work with you because we come at the side of just putting everything together, design, technology, but a lot of the core technologies like the streaming things, your team are doing and doing pretty well. And it's been a great honor to work with you. And thanks for accepting this invitation. The event.
Thanks for inviting me.
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah, thank you. Nice to be here.
And just for people here on the stream, we're gonna leave the recording on our LinkedIn page, so you can share it for any friends or colleagues that wanted to be here and couldn't. We're gonna leave it there. You can share it, and we will be sending some surveys and emails afterwards to those who signed up. So thank you everyone for joining, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.